Conflict comes up in every single relationship we have, whether it's friendship or a romantic partnership, family relationships. And it comes up especially when we're dealing with stress or we haven't had enough sleep, or we disagree about certain values that we have, like politics or other hot button topics. It's what we do about our disagreements that makes or breaks our relationships. We either can handle them well, or we can shut down, we can blame the other person, and do a whole bunch of things that hurt the relationship. But there is a way to use conflict to actually make you closer and to create more intimacy. And that's why I love helping people to resolve disagreements with grace and with kindness. Here are 5 tips on how to resolve conflict in your relationships. The first step in resolving conflict is effective communication. I mean, that seems obvious, but what is effective communication? That is being open, being honest, and being respectful. Listen actively to what your partner has to say without interrupting, and then express your own thoughts and feelings clearly and calmly. But before you can do that, you also have to create a safe space so that the person who's listening actively is not feeling really frustrated the whole time that they have something to say and they can't really be patient while they wait and listen to you. So having a practice of setting up safe spaces and safe times to talk about everything is also part of effective communication. The second tip on resolving conflict is to seek understanding and empathy. It's super important to try to understand your partner's feelings and point of view. We usually listen to share our own opinion. We listen to basically judge the other person and say they must be wrong. But listening to understand before sharing our own opinion is really important, because we all have unconscious biases about the way things should be and the way things are. And when we listen, we have empathy. And empathy helps you recognize the emotions that are driving that person's actions and responses. It makes it easier for you both to find common ground. Even in warring communities where there are gangs, where there are wars, there are common values. And so just imagine in your own relationship and relationship with friends too, that they have their own perspective, and it's important to try and understand it. The third tip in resolving conflict is to identify and address underlying issues. Most of the time, conflicts arise from much deeper issues than what you're fighting about right now. And, it's usually not about the thing. So work together to uncover and address those underlying concerns rather than focusing just on the surface disagreement. There's usually some sadness or some unresolved issues that are from the past, especially if you haven't been able to resolve conflict well in your relationship in the past. You're going to be carrying those issues again and again. The fourth tip in finding a way to resolve conflict is to find compromise and solutions. This is so important. So you've talked it out, you've realized, we have these disagreements, but now it's time to negotiate together and brainstorm a way to find the middle ground. Compromising doesn't mean that one person wins, one person loses, or that you have to suppress your own needs in order to keep the peace, which is what happens often in long-term relationships. It's really about creating a situation that is win-win. Both people feel that their needs are met. And the fifth tip in resolving conflict is to establish boundaries and respect them. I love boundaries, I teach boundaries, and it's really important to set and respect each other's boundaries. Healthy boundaries ensure that both partners feel safe and valued. Boundaries prevent issues from escalating into larger conflicts. So what would that look like? It would look like, okay, when we have this conversation, we're not going to talk over each other. We are going to meet in a public space so we don't let the argument get out of hand. Another boundary would be that we will treat each other with respect. that if it gets disrespectful, we will stop and then we will come back and talk about this again. We each have to define our own boundaries about what works for us and then respect them, and also don't abandon them, because often we set a boundary and we don't enforce it. So let me know which of these tips resonate for you when it comes to conflict in your relationships. Where have you struggled when it comes to setting clear ways of resolving conflicts with kindness and respect? Because so many of us just don't have the skills. And so don't blame yourself if you haven't had them in the past. It is common that we don't learn these skills growing up, and we're not modeled these skills growing up. And so it's really important to learn them and then practice them. Practice is one of the most important steps in learning any new skills, because if you just read about them, hear about them, learn about them, but don't practice them, they will not become part of your fabric, part of who you are, and they will not help your relationships.